Good day. It's a privilege for me to present to you the report of SEDCOM and SEDMED Medical Scheme. My report will be structured in two parts. The first will deal with SEDCOM. The second part will deal with SEDMED. May God bless you as you consider the contents of this report, and may you appreciate the contribution made by these two departments to the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Southern Africa.
SEDCOM is the property holding company of the SAU and all its affiliated organizations. The working policy of the General Conference, or GC as we know it, and the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, or the SID, determines that church properties shall be held in the name of an appropriate non-denominational corporate entity, not by individuals, trustees, or local organizations. The GC Working Policy, S5505, determines, and I quote, "Church properties and other assets shall be held in the name of an appropriate denominational corporate entity, not by individuals, trustees, or local congregations." The SID Working Policy, BA 2520 and S6005 state, and I again quote, "Division policies may provide for the division and/or unions within the division's territory to establish a corporation for the purpose of holding title to denominational property. In such cases, the properties are held in trust for the denomination or other legal entities such as institutions." In accordance with these policy directives, the GC, SID, and the SAU has designated corporate entities for the holding of denominationally owned fixed properties. SEDCOM, a non-profit company, is the fixed property holding corporate entity of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Southern Africa. The SAU Working Policy, FT05 states, and I quote, "SEDCOM has been established to serve the SAU and local conferences and institutions in their territories as trustee of real estate and of charitable trust assets." The SAU Working Policy and Constitution determines that SEDCOM shall be the legal corporation for the holding of property and the transaction of all business pertaining thereto on behalf of all the organization within the SAU. Therefore, all properties owned by or transferred to the organization shall be registered in the name of the legal corporation, SEDCOM. The objectives of SEDCOM are stipulated in the SAU Working Policy and SEDCOM's Memorandum of Incorporation. It can be summarized as follows. To advance and promote religious education and knowledge in accordance with the doctrines and principles of the SDA Church. Management and protection of denominational fixed properties. To acquire, hold, and secure title in property. The establishment of churches, schools, and institutions supporting the SDA Church, registration of mortgage bonds, insurance of buildings and contents, rendering of trust services, estate planning and administration, rendering of legal services to the organization, administration of denominational bursary agreements, management of loans, investments, annuities, bequests, and gifts. The mission of SEDCOM is to help the Seventh-day Adventist Church to limit its exposures to risk, to promote prudent risk management to enable the Church to fulfill its gospel mission, to assist in promoting stewardship to ensure the availability of sufficient funds to enable the Church to conclude its gospel work, to assist in providing a stable organizational platform for future generations. I want us to now consider the services rendered by SEDCOM to the organization. Besides being the property holding entity of the organization, it also fulfills several other activities for the church. These activities include the management of the denominational property, group and general risk insurance. During the quinquennium, SEDCOM has managed, amongst others, the property, funeral, fleet, travel, and general liability insurance of the whole organization. SEDCOM also oversees the Trust Services Department of the organization. The object of Trust Services is to encourage our members to continue their support of God's work through gifts, wills, trusts, annuities, and so forth. SEDMED Medical Scheme. SEDMED is the registered medical scheme of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In terms of the rules of SEDMED, all persons in the regular and full-time employment of the Seventh-day Adventist Church are entitled to become members of SEDMED. SEDMED is governed by a board of trustees. The trustees are elected from the registered members of SEDMED at a regular general meeting of SEDMED members. During the period under review, the board aligned its strategic plan to not only maintain its accreditation standard, but also to improve the services rendered by SEDMED to its members. A number of goals were adopted to achieve the strategic objectives of the BOT. These goals are, amongst others, the appointment of further third-party management organizations to assist SEDMED with the management of certain benefit categories. Implementation of enhanced managed healthcare mechanisms to ensure sustainable performance of the scheme. Increasing certain benefit category limits. Appointment of external auditors to monitor internal adherence to compliance standards. Shifting the focus to preventative healthcare. One cannot talk about the performance of a medical aid and not mention the impact of the COVID pandemic. COVID came at a time when the South African economy could least afford it. Economic growth had fallen to 1.5% and unemployment reached almost 29% by the end of 2019. Then came the pandemic, which further exacerbated the situation. It is held that due to the pandemic, the GDP growth rate fell to its lowest level in 90 years. Unemployment rose to 30.8% as 2.2 million jobs were lost thus far. Our church has not been left unaffected by these events. Income has decreased significantly, and the organization at large is facing very uncertain times financially. With this background in mind, the board was faced with finding ways of navigating the scheme through very uncertain and difficult times in order to find a balance between sustainability on one hand and on the other hand, assisting our members to meet the financial crisis brought about by COVID. The board therefore had to act proactively by adapting the strategic approach of the scheme in order to optimize healthcare treatment without compromising sustainability. Since March 2020 until February 2022, the scheme paid more than 14,537,598.61 rand in COVID-related claims. More than 430 members contracted COVID, and 18 of our beloved brothers and sisters passed away as a result. Our thoughts are with those families who lost their loved ones. Notwithstanding the financial turbulence, the scheme finances were managed efficiently and prudently during this period. The scheme collected 296,941,178 rand in contributions and paid 287,107,694 rands in claims. The scheme has had an operating gain of 9,833,484 rands for the period. The non-healthcare related expenses, administration expenses of the scheme were kept below 4% of the gross contribution income. Appreciation. I wish to conclude this report by expressing my appreciation for our Heavenly Father, whose guidance and grace enable us to fulfill our duties. I want to thank the staff of SEDCOM and SEDMED for their hard work and perseverance during this quinquennium. None of the achievements reached during this term would have been possible without the hard work, sacrifices, and perseverance of the staff of SEDCOM and SEDMED. I also want to thank the officers of the SAU for their support and assistance. Their calm wisdom and understanding proved to be of invaluable worth during difficult times in my departments. I believe with the support provided to the organization and changes effected during this quinquennium, my staff and I, with the Lord's assistance, have succeeded in being part of the team that has contributed toward the building up and strengthening of the SAU. Thank you.